So let's talk about love, shall we? In the very beginning, go back to historical, there was Adam and Eve. But here's the deal. See, if there was Adam and Eve, and that was it. I mean, neither one of them had a choice as to who it was they were going to be with, because the only person to be with was that other person. For Adam, it was Eve, and vice versa. So we presume that they got along and that everything went well, but we don't know that because their offspring, one of them, guy kills his own brother. So, I mean, obviously things were probably not always harmonious. And of course, there's the story about the reason why they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, how, Eve was supposedly enticed into, eating the forbidden fruit by a snake and all that stuff. And, anyway, that's not necessarily the love story. But the point is, Adam and Eve, there had to be some sort of at least rudimentary affection in order for them to, engage in what they engaged. Or maybe it was just pure animal instinct. I figure, what the hell? There's complimentary plumbing right over there. I guess I might as well use it. Jeez. That's not love. Yeah, it's... Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Art, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant one. Oh, come on, Art, take over the show. Give us more. Give us more. You got more of those. Come take over the show. That's a good one. I like it. I like it. Art's my guy. Art is my guy. He's a trained fan. He owned an Apple II GS. He knows the movie Titan AE. Art just never ceases to amaze me. And he's got some great dad jokes. Art, you are my guy. I love it. This is so cool. So anyway, let's get back to love. Let's move it up closer to current times. How best for me to start this? Is it just for me to go into my own stories as far as my unluckiness at love up until a certain point, a certain marvelous point that unfortunately happened after my marriage ended? You'd think that the marriage would have been that magical point, but unfortunately it wasn't. And I'll touch on that a little bit because nobody's at fault. I don't blame her. She blames me. I don't think she blames me, but, because the woman that I married, a delightful, wonderful lady named Brenda, who I met when we were both working at Sears. And Brenda worked in the credit department where my mother also worked. My mother had a part-time job in the credit department. She fielded complaints from customers. And Brenda was a full-time administrative assistant. She worked for I believe it was the head of credit marketing. She was his administrative assistant. And so Brenda would field calls for the department sometimes. And sometimes calls would go through her desk. And, sometimes it was me just calling to, talk to my mother for a couple of minutes about whatever, My mother used to like to clean my apartment because it was a mess. She would on her way home from work, she would stop at my apartment, and because I gave her a spare key because occasionally I would forget to turn the coffee maker off, and I would call her up and say, "Hey, Mom, listen, I think I forgot to turn the coffee maker off. Could you stop by my place on the way home and just turn it off for me, or make sure that it's been turned off?" And then I'd come home and my apartment was clean. I never asked her to do it. She just did it. And she also used to do that for my oldest sister, who also lived, years before me, a little farther north in the same area. So going shopping. Oh, okay. All right. Well, enjoy your shopping trip. Where are you going, Rick? Is this grocery shopping? Is it clothes shopping? Is it fun shopping? You buying new shotgun shells? Anyway, have a great time, and thanks for stopping in. I do appreciate it. So where was I? We're talking about meeting Brenda, and yeah, Rick has heard this story. So, and of course he knows about Redi as well. So I would call, and sometimes Brenda would answer the phone, And we would talk sometimes. And then she would transfer me over to Mom. And then Mom and I would talk. And at first it was just kind of a perfunctory, hi, how are you? Oh, hey, I just called to speak with, Jane and Brenda. Said, okay, sure, I'll transfer you. And that was it. Over time, though, I would visit my mother in the department, and I met Brenda, and she was a very attractive woman, but she was married. At the time, she was married. So there was nothing more than, oh, this is the nice lady who answers the phone, or my mother, and my interests lay elsewhere because, well, she was married. So one day, after a few years, Brenda was no longer married. And I was not seeing anyone at the time, dating anybody. So that was a perfect storm. And by the time we had established a really good rapport, because a lot of those phone conversations started becoming longer and longer, where I would talk for several minutes to Brenda, and then she'd transfer me to my mother, and my mother would say, oh, you're too busy talking to Brenda to talk to me, huh? She kind of suspected that something might be happening, but I wasn't aware of it. But apparently my mother saw something I didn't see. But anyway, we were both free, and then there was that perfect storm, and we looked at each other different and said, hey, you're kind of cute. Oh, you are too. And we started dating, and we got married, and it ended up being like the wrong thing for both of us. Because I think we were both on the rebound from other relationships, a failed marriage, and me from a failed relationship. And the marriage only lasted about 5 years, and we spent almost half of that time separated. While we were separated, Brenda met the guy that she should have married instead of me. Because I met him. I was like, yeah, if you had met him first, you'd probably still be married today, all these years later. And maybe she is. I don't know. We've fallen out of touch. But it was clear that they were much more suited for each other than she and I were. And so, but that's what life is, what happens while you're making other plans, So anyway, Brenda and I were very good friends, and we even after the divorce, we were very good friends. We left divorce court, and she drove me to the airport because I had to fly to Philadelphia to do a video shoot in Philly. So, I mean, that's the kind of a bond we had developed as friends, and we thought nothing of it. I get to the airport, and I get to Philly, and I'm coming out of the gate, and the guys in the video crew are waiting for me. Say, "Hey, Juan, how you doing? What'd you do today?" "Oh, I got divorced. How about you? Let's go do a video shoot." That's kind of the way it was. No animosity, I mean, there were some, the things, I mean, we got divorced. So there were some incompatibilities that just could not be resolved. So I'm not going to say it was like, oh, because, divorce is not a happy thing. And I was sad for a while, as was she. But we moved on. And like I said, she met a great guy who was ideally suited for her. I, on the other hand, stumbled and fumbled my way through relationships for a bunch of years after that. But that's just me, because I'm weird when it comes to that sort of thing. And I got tired of, after a while, it just seemed like because of the long hours I worked and the fact that my social life was compromised to a great deal outside of the workplace because of long commutes and long hours working, the only women that I would meet were women that I was working with, So it got to a point where I thought, well, you know what? Someday I'm going to come to work, and every other woman I run across in the hallway as I'm walking toward my department is going to be someone I either dated or had been married to. Mercifully, that was only one person as far as a marriage goes. But I started thinking, you gotta break this cycle. So anyway, it was at the time. This was the late 90s. And I don't know if you guys remember any of the old 976 numbers that started out first for sports. I forget what the 976 sports number was, but you could call at any time and you could get like the latest sports results. They were updated like every 15 minutes or so. And we used to call from work all the time. And of course, there was a premium charge for those calls. And of course, the workplaces started getting, frowning on that. And like, no, you can't call these 976 numbers. Well, eventually it became more than sports. There was 976 for this, that, or other thing. There were, psychic hotlines and there were dating lines even. And I heard nothing but bad things about these dating lines, They were just hookup lines. And so at first I was not even going to consider doing anything like that. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. This might be a way for you to meet people who are outside of the workplace. Because clearly when you get up at 6 a.m. to get to work by 8:30 a.m., and then you leave work at 5 p.m., and you're getting home at 8:30 p.m., that doesn't leave a whole lot of time for having a life. So I decided, see what was up. And you listen to like profiles and stuff, and sometimes there was a live chat component, and sometimes you could chat with somebody and establish a little rapport, and then you'd meet, you'd have, a date. It's like self-imposed blind dating, basically.